Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be making a new Cyclocross power ranking as well as discussing the midweek action, night action in Woerden, the Nacht van Woerden. And as always with me to discuss it all, Issam, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Let's start with the men's action yesterday in Woerden. There was a low budget stream. There were a lot of blind spots in the course, and that's actually why I went. And it's actually the cyclocross race on the calendar that's closest to my house, so I feel kind of obliged to go. And it's a really, really great event. It's a spectacle. There's not that many night races. Personally, I think there should be more night races in cyclocross, not because of the floodlights and the majesticness that it has to it, but I think just in terms of business model, having night races in primetime slots midweek when there's not that many other sports would be a great opportunity. But there is one in Woerden, and this is, I believe, the fourth year in a row that I'm attending it, so I was pleased. It was great, and the men's race was really, really thrilling. We had early on in the race a leading group of 3-4 riders, but then after that it was Pim Ronnaar who put down the hammer. Felipe Orts was kind of yo-yoing behind him a few seconds. Just halfway through the race, probably after 35 minutes, it looked like Orts was bulging. It looked like he was cracking. The gap went out to 7 seconds. But he came back. He repacked himself. It wasn't as much that Ronnaar imploded. No, it was a comeback from Orts. He came into the rhythm. He closed the gap. It was a strong outing. He immediately put Ronnaar under pressure and went on to take the win. He was super pleased with that win. Ronnaar came in second. Big scrap for third place. Eventually, Jente Michels coming out on top there. What were your takeaways, Issam?
The main one probably is Orts winning. I think it was, when you look at the start list, it was within the possibilities. It wasn't an outrageous call. But I think it still was somewhat, I would say, a surprise, but it was definitely nice to see, and it could have been playing a little bit out differently, but it didn't, and I think that for Orts it was, from what I could see, also his reaction afterwards, it seems like it was for him a huge success, and it's great to see that he was able to pull it off. I think it's in terms of where this race stands, it isn't the most prestigious race, but it's a special one, I guess, and certain riders definitely love it because of the whole ambiance and the fact that it's at night. And I think for Orts it's definitely a race that he will cherish in terms of victory, and it seems like he is on a roll, and it seems like he is just getting better and better and improving, and I think that this is sort of a we getting sort of confirmations again and again that his form is very good, and that if the circumstances are there and he feels good, he can really give it a crack for a good result, and in this field even victory.
The career trajectory of Felipe Orts is remarkable. This is a rider who keeps improving at a high age, and perhaps it's logical, right, for a rider that doesn't have the same access to resources as the Dutch and Belgians. But just for some perspective, Felipe Orts did not race a junior world championship. His first world championship was as a first year U23, and he finished outside of the top 50. He slowly worked his way forward, and as a final year U23, he surprised many people, and it was somewhat of a surprise. He was tipped as a dark horse for those World Championships in BLS, but he came on the podium. But he was a final year U23, and there were the complaints as always, the concerns as always. Spanish rider, what pathways is he going to get? How is he going to move forward? But he did, slowly but surely. He made these steps. He kept improving. 2021, he got his first podium. Maybe it was 2020, but in Leuven, I remember we interviewed him from his camper van directly after that race, and he was super thrilled. That was a interview in half Spanish, half English, and now he's probably capable of doing an interview in half Dutch and half Spanish with a bunch of English in there as well, which articulates his growth, the fact that he's committed to coming over here, and step by step it went better. Podium in Ardooien, second place. Then in Niel, his first real big podium. Last year he took a win in Rukve, but now I feel this win in Woerden is just that next little thing. And the only thing that we're still waiting for is that win in a Super Prestige X2O, maybe a World Cup race. What was key to his win yesterday? Technique. There is probably nobody out there that corners better than Felipe Orts. The way he's able to like throw himself, manipulate himself, like so loose in the hips, just leaning in, easy on the power. It's incredible. It's phenomenal to watch. And adding to that is his barrier skills. He was one of the only people at the front of the race hopping. That definitely saved him a few seconds every single lap. That was actually key to that phase in which Ronnaar was piling up the pressure, Issam. Ronnaar stretched it out. Then you came to the VIP tent. The barriers were there. A bit of mud, a few ruts. And Orts managed to claw back those 4 seconds. Every lap there, 4 or 5. And with that, he stayed within reach. He could see Ronnaar. Ronnaar knew, I need to push again. And at some point, Orts closed that gap and then immediately took the initiative and went on to win. It was a great ride by him.
We have seen his technique already, but it is the way he corners as well. It's like his weight transfer, everything. It's like it's you're watching a MotoGP race in terms of how he's handling the bike, and you can definitely learn a thing or two from the way he's taking a corner, and it's effective. It's effective, and it's also, you have to take into consideration that in a race that could make the difference. You don't always need to be the strongest. Your technique can definitely play a role in certain courses, and with Woerden, that was definitely a course where you can just really put the pressure on, and someone like Ronnaar, who is just not feeling himself all that well, then that difference is going to be there. And then in terms of technique against someone like Orts, it's going to hurt you a little bit, and when you are just spending that little bit more every lap, it will add up in the end. But I think nevertheless for Ronnaar it is encouraging. If you look at his last couple of races and how he was able to somewhat bounce back and be on the podium, also the way he was racing, I think it's if you can call it that, he's someone on his way up again.
Certainly, Ronnaar was quite strong. I mean, I do think that it kind of, for me, in some confirmation bias, of course, I think it proved the point I made in the Ruddervoorde podcast, that I think his form is good. In the post-race interview, he alluded to it. He was feeling much, much stronger than last year, and perhaps it helps him move up in the power rankings, because you know what it's time for now?
Issam's Mud Mountain.
Yes, that's about right. It's time for Issam's Mud Mountain. Issam, take it away.
Before I go on with this, I will tell you that I didn't change a whole lot, but there are some newcomers, there are some changes, and I will get through them. Tier 5, we see still Victor van der Putten, Kuhn van der Bos, but we also have now Wietse Meeuwse returning, and Jente Michels as a newcomer. I think for Michels, it's definitely the way he has been racing. He is there. It isn't that spectacular, but you still have to give him credit for being there, running up with quite well within the top 10, or at least fighting there. And I think that is, in my opinion, that is enough to put him there in tier 5. I think that he is showing himself better and better. Hendricks is not feeling himself actually, and it wasn't fit to race in Woerden as well, which he had planned but wasn't able to show up, and for that reason I pulled him off. And Kuhn was, for me, I need a little more from him in terms of looking into moving him up a tier. I think that it didn't go unnoticed the way he was racing, but I cannot put him one tier higher for now. If you go to tier 4, we have Van der Haar, Niels van der Putten, Pim Ronnaar, and Emiel Verstringen. Van der Putten was here the big issue, because he normally should have been in tier 3, but it is full up there. It for me at least, it is hard to switch him around with someone else. I could have done it, but I decided in the end to not do it, and I will wait. as bad as it sounds, but I have to wait for this weekend to come, and we'll have to wait and see how that will play out and what would change. Van der Haar, in my opinion, in that tier is definitely the one that needs to watch himself in terms of performances, because if it's continuing the way it's continuing right now, he might well get the boot to Tier 5, but we have to wait and see how that will play out for him. Tier 3 then, we go for the usual, or at least what we had before. Toonaerts, Viseuren and Felipe Orts, they stay there. I think for Arts, he is confirming that he is definitely a rider that on a good day, if he doesn't crash in the last lap or messes it up, he is going to be up there in the top 5 for sure. Viseuren was one of the Crelan riders that actually had somewhat a decent race. It wasn't the greatest of races, but he was there again, and I think that if he has his day, he is just someone that you need to, you need to take into account for someone that can be racing for a podium and even a win. And Felipe Orts, we have been talking about him with the race in Woerden, coming from his win there, but I have to say that from the start of the season when I saw him on my screen, he was impressive, and I think that if he is able to continue that, we can definitely see some good results coming in the next coming weeks. Tier 2 then, Nieuwhuis and Sveek, no changes, despite the fact that Sveek wasn't really showing himself all that well in terms of the legs, how they were. He was still able to do quite well in the race in Essen, the Exactcross, and I think with that and the credit that he got from Meulenbeke, I feel that he is still allowed to be up there, because that if Sveek has his day, he is a dangerous man. And Joris Nieuwhuis, I think that he proved himself a worthy challenger for the Tier 1 guy. It was a race well ridden from him, but it was just not enough. But you can see the improvement, and who knows how that will change up in the next coming weeks. But for now, it's Tier 2 for Joris Nieuwhuis. And we go then to Tier 1, the one that I banked on, and he showed and delivered in Ruddervoorde. Michael van Toerenhout, he stays on top of my mountain, and I think that if we continue, and he also is able to continue, that it could well be that he will be around there for a couple more weeks, but we have to wait and see. There are definitely some riders that want to take that number 1 spot, but for now, I have to say that Michael van Toerenhout is still in that position, and even more secure than he was last week.
One thing I'm wondering about, Issam, is how do you keep in mind or factor in the courses, because now we are getting a number of courses that potentially don't suit Zweek as much, and he's probably not even going to ride the Koppenberg. But with Overijs and Koppenberg, it's 2 climbing courses. Lokeren is another super technical, semi-climby, definitely if it's rainy, muddy, slippery course. We might see Zweek not really perform well there, but that doesn't mean that in 2 weeks' time, when we are at the European Championships on the beach, that Zweek won't be there. So are you trying to debunk everything and kind of pull the strains apart and just see so this rider, Zweek, maybe if he finishes 4th in Lokeren, that's actually a great performance for him? How do you try and factor those things in here? Because definitely, we discussed it in Sunday's episode, Nieuwenhuis and Van Toerenhout doing so well on that course in Ruddervoorde says something about their overall level considering their strengths.
Yeah, I see your point, and I think that for Zweek, it's definitely going to be a little more struggling in the next coming races. But it is, in terms of what he is able to do on a good day, I think that if I take that into account, even on courses that don't suit him well, it is more as well if he is in a position and he has the legs, he can actually, even on courses that don't suit him well, we have seen that in the past, that he can still get a good result out of it. The question will be how good that result will be, and I think that I need a race first. Ruddervoorde didn't go his way, but I need a race a weekend, I guess, before I can really look into the performances of Zweek in terms of, is he actually going to suffer in these type of courses or not? And I think that the race in Overijs will tell definitely a story, and that story I will not overlook. And I think that if for example, we go to Overijs, he has a normal start, everything goes well, and he finishes in outside of the top 10. I think then it would be very fair for me to look into other riders. But I think for now, it's just hard to overlook him. And I will have to wait and see how his result will be there in Overijs and other courses as well. As you said, Koppenberg, if Overijs doesn't go well, then Koppenberg, if he's not even racing it, that would be a fair point. But if he is racing it, I don't think it will be a race that suits him all that well, and especially with the weather forecast, if it's going to be rainy, if it's going to be muddy, it's going to be just that harder for him. So for now, I like him up there in tier 2, but I definitely see your point. And as I said, if Overijse is going to be a race as I try to portray in terms of outside the top 10 and just nowhere, then I definitely will give him the boot of tier 2, and he have to look for a new home in tier 3 or maybe even tier 4. We have to wait and see.
And then comes the European Championships, and he might still take the win because we're racing on a beach. So it's how it goes with these rankings right now. We're just having a bit of a moment where we get 2 climbing courses, but at the same time there's also Heerde this weekend, and Sveik can do very well there. He was on the podium there last year. He should honestly be on the podium again this year. Not everybody is making the quote-unquote journey up to the Netherlands, the north of the Netherlands, even though it's central Netherlands. But for the Belgians, it's considered north of the Netherlands because they need to drive more than 2.5 hours to get to a race. So looking at the rest of the list then, I don't really have anything to argue against Van Toerenhout this week. Nieuwhuis and Zweek then also makes sense. I think Aerts on the 3rd tier also makes sense, especially looking at the courses that we're getting. I've already tipped him for Overijse and Koppenberg. That should be at least 1 victory looking at how he's been coming into the season. Orts after this win would be very unjust to move him down. And I mean, Viseuren van der Putte, I could see the point there, but let's see. You told me before the recording that the weather played a bit of a role here because you feel Viseuren will do really well this weekend in Overijse. So let's see. That brings us to the 4th tier. We already discussed Ronhaar, Van der Putte. Well, for Stringen, not really that much to say, and is 1 for him. But Van der Haar is the pressure on him. He won the last 8 editions of the race in Woerden. I don't even know what the name is. We have the 3-peat and the quad-peat for Van Empel looming this season. But a 9-time win, I don't even know what I would call that. So, regardless, he didn't win. It marked the end of an era for him. He said he's feeling stronger and stronger by the race. Again, a slow start, needed some time to get up to speed, made a mid-race effort to try and close to the leaders, then fell back again, missed the podium. Is he under pressure for you, Issam, of sliding even further down your mountain?
100%. I think that it is getting more and more difficult for him to, for me at least, to have the argument of keeping him out there. I think that he is... I was somewhat saying it in the beginning of the season that I had my doubts of how he was going to get on this season because of the fact that he is just, he's getting older every day, and it's just at some point the decline will start, and there's no shame in that. He had an amazing career, and there are just more and more signs coming up that this season is maybe just start of a decline. And I don't know, he can bounce back. As I said a couple of weeks ago, and I will say that again. I will repeat myself in terms of trying to have some, to save my ass a little bit if in case Van der Haar is actually having a good result and takes a podium or a win somewhere, he can still do it. But for now, there is no sign whatsoever that tells me that he is actually going to be able to pull that off. And the more we get into the season, the more difficult it will be. And I don't know. It's who knows? Maybe it's going to get better. We have to wait and see. But I feel for Van der Haar, it's just currently not really going his way. And we see for Ronhaar that there are some upsides on his results. I don't see that with Van der Haar currently.
Then on the final tier on the bubble, Victor van der Putte came on there, podium this weekend, has to stay there of course. Kuhn after his great performance. Hendricks is out, he's been sick. Van der Bos after his win. I could have potentially seen him be moved up for Van der Haar already, but clearly you decided against that. And then Kamp is off as well, despite a solid performance. But then if we look at who's coming on, it's really tight around there at the back. Jente Michels is coming on, and you can hardly say that's undeserved after he beat Kamp in Woerden, and he also finished way ahead of Kamp in Ruddervoorde. Also on your mountain now, Issam, is back again, Wietse Meeuwse. I'm wondering if we could see some more shake-ups here, and then I'm not necessarily meaning Ryan Kamp and Mace Hendricks, the Dutchies, but Thomas Meen is coming over to the European mainland a first time. Do you think he is on the bubble of your mountain, or are you still in the dark on him?
Someone in the dark. I think I thought you would have said Cameron Mason because he was someone that I actually I wanted to put him on, but I need another weekend. And you will hear that a lot, but I think I need another weekend before I can actually think of putting Cameron Mason on, because he, just of his inconsistency, he has to prove to me a little bit more consistency before I put it on, because it could well be that we go to Overijse and it's 26th. I don't want to see that. So he needs to prove himself just that one more time, then he will be put on. And I think that he is definitely one that is on the bubble. His performances are definitely on the up. If you look at his performances alone, I would put him on. But for me, it's just I need a little more security in that regard, and that's why I didn't put him on yet. But he's been going quite strong, and I think that he definitely deserves it. And with Thomas Mean, I have to see him more in the mix, and when we see him up there with the other riders that we have on the list currently, I think then he has to prove himself. But for now, he is. I'm a little bit in the dark in terms of where I have to put him right now, and I need some proof and justification for him to be put on. So we have to see. I think that Mean has the potential, and especially on the courses that are a bit more tough and need are required a big engine. I think that he is definitely a rider that meets that requirement, but we have to wait and see if that will then be enough for him to battle it out for top 10s, and I think he has it in him, but we have to wait and see.
Then let's move over to the women's race in Woerden. That was also quite interesting, came down to a last lap battle, but that was not before we had Fem van Empel take the whole shot. She was off quite rapidly, Aniek van Alphen in the wheel. The start list itself was not that deep, and that meant that Inger van der Heijden, who had a bad start, found herself overtaking a lot of traffic, a lot of slow riders in her way. She was moving her way through juniors and U23s on the straightaways, through the corners, but she wasn't in position soon enough, because there was a new section in the course this year. Just before the end, there was a run-up, but they had made a little extra uphill there. A bunch of trees had been taken down there to allow the water level to rise further, but that section there was quite slippery, so they went up, and one of the juniors in third place made a small mistake, foot down. Others behind there need to awkwardly dismount, and Van der Heijden was one of them. So she was at that point probably some 18 seconds behind, is what I remember the race announcer say. She needed to chase, and she chased for lap after lap after lap. She regained connection with the leading group, but clearly those efforts were too much, because she also quite quickly had to let go. She did place an attack in the penultimate lap when the pace was a bit lower, but it was clear it was between Van Empel and Van Alphen, with Van der Heijden taking third. I thought at some point Van Alphen was going to take the win, because out of a corner late in the lap, it was Van Empel who accelerated, but it looked flat. There wasn't that much power on there anymore. And that allowed Van Alphen to make the pass. But Van Empel wasn't defeated that easily. We've seen a number of times that if it really depends on it, she has a killer instinct in her. And she did it. She made the overtake along the water side into the uphill off camber with two 180 corners. She dismounted on the inside of the corner, cut Van Alphen off, remounted, defended the leading position in the second 180 degree corner, the second hairpin, and from there on went on to take the win. And I don't really think we can draw too many conclusions here. It's a bit of a Mickey Mouse course. The start list wasn't that good. All these factors are valid, but again, like I said, I don't think there's a lot of reason to panic if you are Van Empel, and for Van Alphen, it's the continuation of a strong season start, Issam.
Yeah, I think, confirming that that the form is on the up and it's looking good. But I tend to agree with you on the fact that, Nacht van Woerden is somewhat a race in which it's like, you can't forget about it for the rest of the season. It's not that you're going to be like, oh, remember the race in Nacht van Woerden where the performance was so good, and we haven't seen that in the later phases of the season. That's not how it goes. It's a fun race in which the riders have a chance of getting a win, and that's it. I think for Van Empel though, it takes some pressure away in terms of not getting that annoying question of, when is your first win coming up after your comeback? You're still not having your first win. What's happening? Is there other... do you have any doubts? You know how the media is, and I think that now taking this win, despite the fact that you can definitely call it somewhat of a Mickey Mouse win, it doesn't really matter. A win is a win. You can take that with you, and the interviewer has to ask another question and a different question and try to find some content in another way. And I think that is probably the only thing that they can somewhat conclude, that I think it's just for the morale, it's just definitely a good thing, and you can take positives from this, and that's basically it. And then you have to focus on the next race, and I really want to see how the how it will be if Brandt is also going to be there challenging, because I think that currently it's definitely going to be interesting how that battle will play out with Van Empel, and maybe even Van der Heijden or Van Alphen is in the mix as well. I mean, it's hard to say that, because it looks that Van Alphen is not on the level to be the Brandt, and maybe Van Empel is also not, but you don't know. Things can change, and maybe they will change.
And for that, we have a power ranking, Issam.
Catch the heat!
Noah's 9. More changes to my list than to yours this week, Issam. 2 Belgians have been dropped off the list. No more Laura Verdonschot, and no more Alicia Frank. She's been sick. I would have normally kept her on, but we have some extra riders coming on. It was actually quite hard to make this list. Dropping 2 places and coming in at number 9 is Magali Rochette. Not really dropping due to her own virtue, but more because of other riders coming in the list a bit later. We have 2 debutants in the list, and we have 1 rider who is starting her season this weekend. Quite surprisingly, Rochette didn't race this weekend. I think she's doing really rad this weekend, and then headed towards the Pan American Championships. So she stays on place 9 for now. Then we have the biggest dropper this week, and it's honestly a bit unfair. Going 3 places down, now in 8th is Aniek van Alphen. She has not performed bad at all. Her performances have been good in Essen. She was really good in Woerden. But there's also been a few other factors that come into play. Because if we look at 7th place, Amandine Foucounet, 3rd place in Ruddervoorde. I can't look past that. I think it's a bit of an outlier, but with such a result and such a showcase of resilience and mental fortitude, I would be crazy to not put her in the list. I did think long if I should put her or Van Alphen first, but to be honest, why would I put Foucounet lower? Because she didn't convince me. She was dangling at the back. But so was Van Alphen. Van Alphen did that for some part of the race in Ruddervoorde. She did that for some part of the race in Essen as well. So in the end, Foucounet is in on 7. Moving into 6th place, starting her season this weekend, Hungarian Kata Blanka Vas. The SD Works rider is doing kind of a similar trajectory as last year. She's racing Overijse, and I believe she is also doing the Koppenberg after that. I'm not sure if she will race the European Championships this year. The course honestly doesn't suit her that well. Of course, her ending of last year was quite strong. World Championships, not as much, but that win in Maasmechelen is certainly one that sticks in my memory. Last year she was around 5th place in her early season races, and honestly I expect the same. We will see her in real form come Christmas and the championships. Moving up 1 place now in 5th is the Belgian champion Marion Norbert-Ribeyrolles, taking the win in Ruddervoorde. Yes, it was a tactical game of chess, but she also showcased a lot of form that makes me think that she deserves this place. She was good in Meulenbeke. She was also good in Essen. She's apparently made a step, as we can see. So that's why she is in 5th place. Continuing with riders from Crelan Corendon, in 4th place still Inger van der Heijden. If she had won yesterday in Woerden, I would maybe have bumped her over 3rd place, but I couldn't do it just yet. I need to see a little bit more. Not necessarily in terms of results, actually kind of in terms of results, not in terms of race feeling. It's more the result. I need to see like a standout result other than this feeling, oh yeah, she looked really good. She won the first race of the season. I would like to see just that little bit more. But she stays in fourth. That's one place behind her teammate, Sara Casasola. 2 second places this weekend on courses that, especially in Ruddervoorde, don't suit her. Stays up there. Overijse and Koppenberg will be big indicators of where she is. If she performs well there, podium, competing for the win, I think, is what we are looking for. Then she can probably stay in contention. It will be really interesting to see how she does there. Some changes at the top then. Second place now is Fem van Empel. I put her on 1 last week. She goes down 1. Wasn't exactly the season start I had hoped for. I don't think it's by any means bad or very disappointing, but I do think in first place Lucinda Brandt is at this point just that little bit better. Brandt, win in Essen, win in Ardooien. I'm still counting in everything I saw from her last year. She remains on top now, but it's very volatile. Anything can change.
It's interesting, to be honest, that Brandt is now the leading woman. I think it is fair, but it's also interesting because do you think that maybe we should give Van Empel a little bit of slack in terms of the fact that she's lacking the rhythm? First race of the season was just up, and that maybe if she gets into rhythm, she should normally be able, because we have seen it last year that if Van Empel is on a certain level that she should normally beat Brandt, normally in the circumstances. But or do you actually think that now, even if that would happen, that Brandt is able to fend off Van Empel in the next coming weeks?
So last year it was already quite close at a number of occasions, right? It was not by any means a done deal. Van Empel won most of the duels, but Brandt was really strong a number of times. So yes, I do think Van Empel will become better, but for now, I do think that I need to put Brandt up. I have higher expectations for her than for Van Empel this weekend. So that's where the motivation comes from. But like I said earlier, no reason to panic for Van Empel. I think it will come. I think she made already a stronger impression in Woerden. She was really going at it for most of the race. So her mental hardness, I think, is growing. She will race in Heerde as well, and I believe Overijse a double weekend. She's doing more Dutch races. She says there's not that many of them, so she wants to support the Dutch organizers where possible, and I applaud that. So I think that will be an interesting perspective to see how she does in Heerde. It should be a relatively okay course for her. I liked the course last year, so I look forward to it.
Who did you have in sixth?
Sixth place, Blanca Vash, starting her season.
Blanca Vash, yes. Well, I was that was why I was asking, because she's going to start her season. Do you think that you're a little bit too cautious with her putting her in sixth, and is it more of a we have to wait and see how it will play out, or is it more of a genuine thinking that will be her level for the coming weeks?
I think that will be her level. I'm honestly torn on where I really should have put her. Of course, it's a guess coming into the season, but I genuinely think that this is where she will be. I don't see her coming in like with high form, because she didn't do it last year. Why would she do it any different this year? I think the Koppenberg is a race she dreams about winning, but that will be really difficult against Fem van Empel, because she's looked so good at that race. And for Vash, I kind of get why you're doing this now, because you're kind of, after the rest period, just having an easy opportunity to get some points, get some rhythm, get back into the groove, and then take some time off like last year to actually fully start your season through training camps and whatnot. But this is where she was last year. I don't really see any reason why it would be that different this year at this point, although actually no, last year the technical abilities in Overijse were quite rusty, and that's also what they will be this year. And if it's muddy, yeah, it might be even harder for her.
One more remark that I have is Ribeiro. I think that it's she didn't have the results over Van der Heijden and Casasola in all the races. but could she maybe become the better Krelan Corendon rider, do you think? Is that within her possibilities, or do you think that it is going to be more Van der Heijden and Casasola taking the lead in the next coming weeks? Because I feel that Ribeiro, sure, I shouldn't focus. It shouldn't, make the Rutherford race as not look at the circumstances and only at the results. But I still feel like it's also indicating something. You need to have the legs to make that work. Sure, you need the teammates as well, and the circumstances have to fit it a little bit to make such a move, because it's not only the move itself, but it's also what is happening behind you. Will they chase? Will they not chase? But I think that for Ribeiro, there is maybe an opportunity. At least it feels for me that way, that you could actually become the better Krelan Corendon rider on the women's side. But am I maybe following too much into the Belgium trap and overhyping that result in Rutherford and overall what I have seen, or do you think that it is possible, but some things have to change?
I think you've been listening to the Belgian media too much Belgian commentators in your ear, because look, Ribeiro has made a step and she's been good this early season, but the level that Sarah Casasola has shown is phenomenal. Not necessarily this season, but just overall, the level that she's been showing over the last 2 years is really, really impressive. And Van der Heijden as well. Van der Heijden is, I think, quite clearly still better. And I saw those two in Rutherford and they appeared stronger. They were caught in the team game. And Ribeiro, look, I still think she is a bit of a one-dimensional rider. Like in Essen, she's never really going to take the win. She does struggle with like the positioning in the groups, like Casasola does to an extent, but it's more like for Casasola. I think Casasola is a better rider in the muddy races. I think Casasola is a better rider on the climby races. I think on the flat courses that Casasola is also just a more powerful rider, and Casasola, I see more way in her like working on those little cyclocross things, her technique, her sand, they are already improving. Ribeiro is also not a great sand rider. Van der Heijden, for that part, also is a strong rider. I think what you saw last year at the end when the others weren't there, or when Brandt was kind of flamed out from such a long season, Van der Heijden was there. She won in Middelkerke. So I think that those two, I still rate them higher. But I did see an article, and I think that's kind of telling. Other teams are having a big issue with Krelan Corendon because they already have 11 wins. Not all of them were necessarily in Belgium or Netherlands, but they have 11 wins. They have a strong field. Honestly, Manon Bakker looked quite good in Rutherford until her crash. That's another potential player they have at the front of the race, or at least in the sub-pack, like the group for 6th place. So it's a lot of potential for them, and they have the numbers on the men's and women's side, and that will benefit them. So perhaps Ribeiro can take a few more wins, and she's in a level where I would say if she has a good day, a really good day, her peak can be enough to win a few races on strength. But over the course of the season, I don't think at the end I will be here saying Ribeiro was the best rider of Krelan Corendon this season with 6 wins. Or 5, or 4 even for that matter.
Well, that's all for me in terms of the remarks. I think your list overall, it all makes sense. It's it will be interesting to see where Vash will be after this weekend, because it's also a bit hard to judge where that will be. But I think that you are right on how you look at it in terms of it could potentially not be that much different from what it was last year. And then I think that where you placed her at currently is not bad, and it's nice to see that Fukuna made it on the list. Let's see how long she will be on it, because it's not. Is it going to be just one weekend, or are we going to see Fukuna now really strong on the list in the next couple of weekends? I mean, that for me at least will also be interesting to follow.
Certainly, and I think Fukune will perform quite well. And Overijse, it's a course where she, because of the climbing, has done quite good historically. So we will see definitely some interesting narratives, and with the 9 it's really tight, and like I said, Van Alphen moves down, but not really due to her own wrongdoing. I think Van Alphen's having a good season, but I just couldn't excuse it to put her over everyone. I think she's in a hot seat to overtake somebody like Fukune, but again, it's not really the fault of Van Alphen. I think she can be very, very pleased with this season start. But I think that wraps it up for this episode, a bit of a preview towards what's coming. Thank you so much, Issam.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
And we will be back this weekend recording episodes about Exactcross Heerderstrand. And then we will also be here to discuss the Super Prestige in Overijse. You will be there, Issam. I will be there. So our listeners will hopefully be there as well. Thanks for listening and goodbye.